Why wouldn't David allow Abishai to kill Saul? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 1 Samuel on Walking Through the Bible. Today we're going to be discussing 1 Samuel chapter 26, verses 1 to 12. But before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, turn to 1 Samuel 26, verse 1. But if you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 1 Samuel chapter 26, beginning at verse 1. Now the Ziphites came to Saul at Gibeah, saying, "Is David not hiding in the hill of Hachilah, opposite Jeshimon?" Then Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, having 3,000 chosen men of Israel with him, to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul encamped in the hill of Hachilah, which is opposite Jeshimon by the road. But David stayed in the wilderness, and he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness. David therefore sent out spies and understood that Saul had indeed come. So David arose and came to the place where Saul had encamped. And David saw the place where Saul lay, and Abner the son of Ner, the commander of his army. Now Saul lay within the camp, with the people encamped all around him. Then David answered and said to Ahimelech the Hittite, and to Abishai the son of Zeruiah, brother of Joab, saying, "Who will go down with me to Saul in the camp?" And Abishai said, "I will go down with you." So David and Abishai came to the people by night. And there Saul lay sleeping within the camp, with his spear stuck in the ground by his head. And Abner and the people lay all around him. Then Abishai said to David, "God has delivered your enemy into your hand this day. Now therefore, please, let me strike him at once with the spear right to the earth, and I will not have to strike him a second time." But David said to Abishai, "Do not destroy him, for who can stretch out his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless?" David said furthermore, "As the Lord lives, the Lord shall strike him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall go out to battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. But please, take now the spear and the jug of water that are by his head, and let us go." So David took the spear and the jug of water by Saul's head, and they got away, and no man saw or knew it or awoke. For they were all asleep, because of a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen on them. Chapter 26 begins much the way that chapters 23 and 24 do, with David on the run from Saul and Ziphites revealing David's position to Saul in order that Saul might kill David. Now, if you recall that at the end of chapter 24, when David spared Saul's life, that Saul vowed that he would no longer hunt David. David didn't return with Saul, for David didn't really believe the sincerity of Saul. And with the events here in chapter 26, we can see why. When Saul hears from the Ziphites and where David is, temptation is too much for Saul, for he gathers his men and went down into the wilderness of Ziph, taking with him 3,000 men. They camp in the hill of Hachilah, which is opposite Jeshimon. We do not know exactly where this is, but the picture on the screen shows you the lay of the land when it comes to the wilderness of Ziph, so you can get an idea of what both men were facing. David knew that Saul had arrived because he had sent out spies, so he stayed out of sight in the wilderness. However, at night, David went into Saul's camp seemingly to scout it out and gain some intelligence. Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, brother of Joab, accompanied David. Now, we will not meet Joab until 2 Samuel, but all three sons of Zeruiah are going to play a major role in David's kingdom. And rightfully so, because Zeruiah is not the name of a man, but a woman, David's sister, according to 1 Chronicles 2:16. That would make Abishai David's nephew. This also makes sense, for recall from chapter 22 that David's family came to him, and included in that family would have been his nephews. When David and Abishai came to the camp, they find everyone asleep. That included Abner, Saul's commander. That there was nobody standing guard of Saul put Saul in a dangerous situation, for here he was hunting David and away from his palace, but sleeping totally unprotected from attack. If he was facing an enemy that wasn't so scrupulous, then it is very likely Saul would have been dead. And Abishai did seek permission from David to kill Saul and put an end to Saul's persecution once and for all. Abishai was so confident he could get the job done that he told David that he would take Saul's spear, which lay beside him, stuck in the ground, and run it through him, and he wouldn't have to do it a second time, for Saul would be dead. This impetuousness and bloodthirstiness is going to run in this family, as we will see when we come to 2 Samuel. David, however, just like in chapter 24, would not allow Abishai to kill Saul, for striking down the Lord's anointed would mean that you had sinned against the Lord, even if the Lord's anointed was sinning against you. Instead, David had learned from the situation with Nabal that if the Lord wanted Saul dead, he could bring that about, either by striking Saul down directly or by having Saul killed in battle. The Lord could even allow Saul to die of natural causes if that was his will. But David wasn't going to take matters into his own hands, even if he could have physically done it. However, David would again show Saul how close he came to death, and how David again didn't kill him because David trusted in the Lord to fight his battles. To do this, David took Saul's spear and water jug that lay beside him and went back to where his men were. We find out that David was able to do this because a deep sleep from the Lord had befallen Saul and his men. But even though the Lord did this, that didn't signal the Lord's approval for David killing Saul. It was just God's way of protecting David from being killed himself by being in the camp. We'll continue with this story, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 1 Samuel chapter 26, verses 13 to 25, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.